Everything is fine in Columbus. Relax. Everything is fine in Columbus. But not everything is okay in Baton Rouge. Brian Kelly made a huge mistake last night, and LSU's lost to Florida State in that wild game. In an 18 school Big Ten, man, the scheduling fits like a glove. We'll get into all that here on episode 33. Welcome to College Football Speak Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. Let's get into this discussion about Ohio State Buckeyes first. I think there's a lot of overreaction, and we enjoy overreaction here at Peek Around the Corner. In fact, I often do it myself. But I think people got to relax on the Buckeyes. The offense is not working. Something is wrong. I don't think so. But let's get into an article real quick here by a great writer, Brad Crawford at 247 Sports. Let's get into his article and let's discuss it some more. Okay, Brad Crawford, 247 Sports, writes a good column here. The Ohio State offense faced a litany of questions from media members after the Buckeyes' season-opening win over Notre Dame. What promised to be the nation's most explosive unit this season largely struggled following the exit of Jackson Smith-Njigba early due to injury. The Buckeyes were held to 3 touchdowns for the first time since the national championship game to end the 2020 season and didn't find their rhythm against the Fighting Irish. Pressed on Ohio State's lack of production once Smith-Njigba left the game, Buckeyes head coach Ryan Day nixed any notion the offense struggled without him. Ryan Day, I refuse to answer that question right off the bat. We just beat the number 5 team in the country by 11 points, Day said via Bucknuts. And when you really look at the last 4 teams we played, I think all 4 teams were in the top 10. That's not easy to do. It's hard. This is a top 5 team. So we just beat the number 5 team in the country by 11 points. Here's what media members are saying about Ohio State's offense after week 1. Tom Fornelli. Is Georgia's offense better than Ohio State? People are asking. Brian Crawford goes on. Ohio State, despite beating the number 5 team in college football, was not viewed as the most impressive team in week 1 by national media types. The distinction went to quarterback Stetson Bennett in Georgia, following the demolition of nationally ranked Oregon. The Bulldogs had their way with the Ducks in Atlanta prior to Ohio State's defensive-driven win over the Fighting Irish. Did C.J. Stroud lose his early Heisman lead to Bennett? Well, I think he did. Obviously, he did. And, of course, the Georgia game, demolishing Oregon Ducks, did have an effect on how people viewed Ohio State defeating Notre Dame only 21-10. But Notre Dame's got a good defense. And Marcus Freeman is he's a great mind. It did surprise me. I had Ohio State winning that game by more than 17.5 points. The game did surprise me, no doubt. And we'll go into that in a second. But I think people are just getting a little bit off the rails here when it comes to analyzing Ohio State's offense. They're going to be fine. In fact, they're going to be great. But let's continue on this article before I get into my thoughts. Ari Wasserman. Haven't seen Ohio State's offense this out of sorts after losing receiver since the 2006 national title game. Okay. And then Mike Greenberg. Ohio State just doesn't have the best offense in the country. They have one of the best offenses we've seen in some time. Holding them under 30 will be a monumental achievement if anyone does it this year. At full strength, Greensburg is right. This Ohio State's offense is largely unstoppable, Crawford says. Ohio State was held under 30 points twice last season, and they both happened to come in losses to Oregon and Washington. So Ohio State won this game. They were held under 30, but they did win 21-10. Stephen Means says Ohio State's defense has been better than its offense today. That is true. And I think Ohio State Buckeyes should be very excited about that. Knowles, their defensive coordinator, has already made quite a difference in Ohio State's defense. I think they should be very excited. Russo, not having JSN is obviously going to take something out of the Ohio State's offense, but the Buckeyes are supposed to have plenty of other weapons. Give Notre Dame a lot of credit. Stroud had has rarely looked comfortable and confident. No easy yards. That's all true. Got to give credit to Notre Dame. Notre Dame was playing that soft zone defense, and Ohio State didn't make the adjustments late in the game, and I think they have sent the message to their future opponents on their schedule. Again, we go back. Patrick Murphy tweets out 2 interesting decisions there by Ohio State. C.J. Stroud throws into coverage instead of running for a first down and second down, and then Ryan Day elects to punt on 4th and 3 down 10-7. Hayden Grove. C.J. Stroud is still 24 of 34 for 223 yards, 2 TD passes, and a 145.1 rating on a, quote, off night, quote. Okay. So here's the deal. The Irish defense played they played the corner safeties deep. They played it 2 deep. They played a soft zone. And the Buckeyes did not really decide to focus on the running game until the last couple drives. And that last drive, they gave the ball to Williams and they trucked down the field and scored. Notre Dame's Fighting Irish were basically giving C.J. Stroud a test to see if Stroud could march down the field with short passes. They were saying, C.J. Stroud, go ahead and run on us. Because I think what was happening is, or what needs to happen for the Buckeyes offense is C.J. Stroud is going to have to tuck the ball and run against that soft zone. Because they're going to be seeing the same defenses here in week 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's a copycat league. Just like the NFL, college football, everyone saw what Notre Dame did to Ohio State. In that type of defense, it works effectively if the quarterback takes it and run, right? Takes it and run on a few of those passing plays. But Stroud didn't run much last year, and I think against Ohio State, he might have ran it 3 times for 1 yard, something like that. They need him to bust out of the pocket and make sure, Ohio State needs to make sure that the defensive linebackers and safeties have to keep an eye on C.J. Stroud threatening to run the ball downfield. That will help. But yes, Jackson Smith-Jigba getting healthy is also going to help. And the Buckeyes make a more determined effort to run the ball early in the game. To bring those linebackers up to the line of scrimmage. And then Ohio State's going to be able to find passing lanes downfield. Ohio State Buckeyes offense is going to be just fine, in my opinion. They played a tough Notre Dame Fighting Irish team. Got to give Notre Dame the credit. We often fail to give the other team credit when things go the way we don't think they're going to go. Give Marcus Freeman and the defense of Notre Dame all the credit in the world for that performance. Ohio State Buckeyes offense is going to be just fine. What's not going to be fine is Brian Kelly's LSU team down in Baton Rouge. I'm not going to go over the game. It was a crazy game. But Brian Kelly made one huge, big mistake, and that was at the very end of the game. And Craig Pflugar, I'm completely agreeing with Paul Feynman's take, and I don't usually do that. But Brian Kelly, for all the mistakes that happened in that game, Brian Kelly needed to go for 2, not 1. He needed to go for 2 in the win. First of all, LSU played a bad game. They played a bad game. They got fortunate that Florida State gave them a miracle chance with that fumble late in the game at the 2 or 3 yard line of LSU. LSU just went 99 yards on Florida State. Florida State's defense was gassed. Absolutely gassed. LSU special teams has already fumbled a couple punts. But more importantly, LSU already had a field goal blocked. You cannot put the game in the hands of the special teams of the field goal kicking unit for LSU to tie that game and then to send it into overtime. How do you know you've even got a 50-50 chance to win in overtime? You had FSU on the ropes. They were gassed. Keep the ball in your quarterback's hands and let him be the winner. Let him make the winning play or the losing play. When Brian Kelly threw up that number one finger for LSU to go for 1 point, man, my jaw hit the floor. I could not believe it. Brian Kelly, you cannot be that conservative going into SEC play. You got to roll the dice. You've got to put the ball in your best player's hands to win the game. This is not Notre Dame going against, this is SEC country. Yes, you played ACC Florida State last night and you lost. In the SEC, you cannot coach that way. When you have the team on the ropes, you got to go for the kill shot. Period. End of story. Before we get to the Big Ten scheduling, please, just a reminder, if you like this content, hit the like button. Please share the video with your friends and subscribe to this channel. We are getting so close. We're over 900 subscribers. Our march to 1,000 within our first month of being a channel. It's amazing. I thank you so very much. I'm so grateful to you all. Please subscribe. Now, let's get to the Big Ten. We've gone over this for the last few days about how Big Ten, how Oregon and Washington are still trying to get into the Big Ten. Big Ten is still looking at their options. The Big Ten is also trying to see if there's enough money from potential new media companies to expand this 17th and 18th school. We know at Peek Around the Corner, we gave you the information in the early spring that USC called the Big Ten. We also gave you information a couple of days after UCLA and USC made the official announcement that they were joining the Big Ten, that the schools that the Big Ten were going to be targeting was Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Notre Dame. We've also told you that Big Ten doesn't always get what they want. A lot of evidence of that, a lot of history, a lot of evidence of that. I get heat from Big Ten fans every time I say that, but it's true. If the Big Ten got everything they wanted, they would have had Oklahoma and Texas calling Warren's office instead of Sankey's office. Okay? So as they wait to see if they get the numbers to bring in an Oregon and a Washington, possibly at a little bit of a decreased rate for both those two schools, as they wait for those numbers to come in, as the Big Ten is going through the preliminary process with Oregon and Washington, let's look at an 18 team conference schedule in all the sports in the Big Ten. Because I would say, from my perception, for people who I've talked to, the 18 team Big Ten conference is so much beneficial, so much easier to schedule than a 16 team conference. And I think that's the major force in this push to possibly expand to a 17th and 18th school. If Notre Dame can't come on a board, of course the Big Ten's not going to 20. Not right now. But they could still go to 17th, 18th. And a large part to do with that is not to have UCLA and USC on an island. Just look at it. Put out your own napkin and pen and write it all down. It is very obvious that an 18-team conference is so beneficial. First of all, if you brought in Oregon and Washington, we will use those two schools as an example, especially because we consider them to be the favorites, to be the 17th and 18th school here on September 5th. Just look at it. 18-team football conference. You can have 3 permanent rivals, regional scheduling pods, the 4 former Pac-12 schools, UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington. They schedule their own scheduling pod. Those are 3 games. And then you have the 4 scheduling pod of Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. And then you have the 4-team scheduling pod of Indiana, Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois. And then the 6 teams out east. And you can get all their permanent rivals within their region. It cuts down on travel, right? A team like USC now, those are three games, right? Washington, Oregon, UCLA. Those are the 3 games. Now they have 6 more Big Ten games left in their schedule. On an average, every 2 years, on an average, 3 of those would be home games. 3 of those would be away games every season. So now you're looking at a yearly schedule for USC of 3 Big Ten road games outside of their region, outside of the Pacific Coast region, instead of a potential 4 or 5 game conference schedule road games outside of their region if they just remain a 16-team football conference. But it doesn't just, it helps football a little bit, but it helps the other sports greatly. Look at basketball, an 18-team conference basketball in the Big Ten. Again, take UCLA, for example. They would keep their 3 football rivals into basketball. USC, Oregon, Washington. They play them home and away. Those are 6 games. The other 14 games, they play once each, the other 14 Big Ten schools. 7 of those would be away, 7 of those would be at home on average. So now UCLA has 7 away games, right, schedule in their men's basketball, their women's basketball, instead of the 16-team conference, basketball conference, and where could be up to 9 away games away from their Pacific Coast region in conference play. You accumulate all that between the men's basketball, women's basketball, football, and then you throw in baseball, then you throw in softball, where if you had Oregon and Washington, you go ahead, write it all down. The reduction of miles and time for the student athletes from a 16 to an 18-team conference is enormous. And then you consider the 6 years between 2024 and 2030. Add all those miles up. Add all those plane trips, time away from your university. Add them all up for all your student athletes. It's enormous. It's an enormous difference for UCLA and USC to have Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten Conference. It's also an enormous difference for the other Big Ten schools to have 4 Pacific schools instead of just 2. Add it all up. It's an enormous difference. And I think it's the driving force behind Kevin Warren trying to look under every rock and every crack and to talk to all these potential new media partners. Maybe to expand their streaming content, to add on a 17th and 18th school. We have heard this. We have heard the term double dipping, scheduling. The reason they would want to add on an Oregon and Washington. We heard that from a Big Ten employee here at Peek Around the Corner. So do not eliminate do not in your mind write out the significance of the value of having an 18-team conference versus 16 based on scheduling. Don't write it off. It's a big major force behind all of this. Please put on your comments on the section comment below this video. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, I read all the comments. Trust me, I do. Especially the ones that disagree with me. Sometimes I respond. But I like to listen to other people. As you know, we talk about things here on Peek Around the Corner that I do not agree with. I like that. I like getting out of the silo. I like getting out of our information loop. I'm constantly asking BTM and his associates. I'm poking, I'm prodding to make sure they've got it all right. So please leave your comments down. And again, hit the like button if you like the content, subscribe, and share the video. Until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take care of each other. Thank you so very much.